If you're a solo mom or online entrepreneur who wants freedom but still is trapped doing everything alone, then this episode is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
Yeah, it was first client, 24 hours from a Facebook group. And then I just started to, it's kind of like, I call it the blue car concept. You want to buy a new car, and then literally for weeks until you buy that car, you see them everywhere. And I was just like, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. I had no idea how to run a business. It was literally, I just saw the potential, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to try it. Like I kind of was just like, if it didn't work, I could always go back to work. And I think because I was in such a bad position, it kind of gave me that drive to be like, well, this is better. This is better. And because I had to make it work, personally, I'm a solo mum, I had a mortgage, I was just like, this is it.
What if the thing holding your business back isn't your skill set, your strategy, or your effort, but the fact that you haven't stepped fully into your CEO era yet? On the Audacious Living podcast, we explore what it really means to live audaciously by making bold, intentional choices that align your work with a life that you actually want. Today's guest is Sasha Eburne, she knows this journey firsthand. She went from a 25-year hospitality career to building a freedom-first online business almost overnight, and then scale it into a coaching practice, helping women stop treating their business like a side hustle and start leading like CEOs. This conversation is for women who are ready to stop surviving, start leading, and build a business that works for them, not the other way around. So now that we got you all set, let's get into it. Hey, Sasha, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. So thanks for doing this.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to be able to, sit down and engage in dialogues with individuals. And really the goal or focus here is encouraging individuals to have their best audacious lives. And, without question, sort of look at your background. You've certainly, you've embodied audacity in action, if you will. And I think it's inspiring for our listeners to be able to take in some of your story and understand sort of your pathway and your journey, because we all are on our own individual path, and the things that we have in front of us, or obstacles are in front of us, are ours to overcome. But we can take lessons from others and sort of what they've done on their journey, what's helped them. And so maybe as a starting point, I'd get you to introduce yourself to your audience and talk about the work that you've done and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Sure. Thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. So grateful to be here. So as you said, my name is Sasha Eburne. I am a certified business coach, and I work with clients all around the globe, predominantly women, but a few men most recently. And I support them to essentially grow their business to a freedom first and a me first business. So they're designing it around their life and what they want, and essentially supporting them to grow. I predominantly work with those in the online space, specifically virtual assistants, coaches, and spiritual entrepreneurs and online service-based businesses. And my journey pretty much started post the pandemic. I had a 25-year hospitality and hotels career as events and sales directors around different countries in the east coast of Australia. And we were the first hotel that entered the quarantine program. So we housed our international arrivals in our hotels, and we were stood down, no job. And it was probably about a year going in and out of different jobs. And then I stumbled across the virtual assistant opportunity, and I started my own virtual assistant business, and that just catapulted really quickly. I got my first client in 24 hours. I quit my job in a week, and I was fully booked in 3 weeks. And within 6 months, we had a team of 15 around the country. And it was only 4 months into the business that I decided to share what I had learned in terms of the business model of being a virtual assistant. And then I started my coaching journey, and probably it was about 2 years into it, I just really fell in love with the coaching space. I'd done my certifications and really could just see so much potential of helping people in their lives and moving forward. And now I absolutely love the work that I get to do and the change that I get to make for other people.
Without question, Sasha, you went all in like overnight. It feels like. How's that like?
Literally, yeah, I set my business up overnight. I had my first client 24 hours, and then I was more in the mindset of at the time I hated the job that I was in, so it was an
Mm.
easy decision. But essentially, within the first 7 days, I went into my boss and I said, "Here's my notice. I'm done. I'm out." And yeah, I went all in and I left no stone unturned and had lots and lots of conversations, and it paid off.
Help me understand how that unfolded as quickly as it did. I mean, I certainly want to talk about the mindset at
Yeah.
that point because that's another part of the conversation. But was there any sort of pre work you did in advance, or you said I'm here and all of a sudden, boom, clients are showing up?
Literally, that's that's what happened. I just stuck to what I knew how to do. So I'd come, like I said, from hotels, and I was a sales director, I was an event manager, and I just started with the basics. I just started saying that I could do people's inboxes, do some sales, do some sort of, executive assistant, just
Hmm.
business support. I really didn't know what I was going to offer. I just kind of made it up as I went along and just started having conversations. And because I went all in, I could literally tell everybody and anyone. I went and changed like LinkedIn. People started messaging me, so there was a lot of word
Right.
of mouth in the beginning.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was first client 24 hours from a Facebook group, and then I just started to. It's kind of like I call it the blue car concept. You want to buy a new car, and then literally for weeks until you buy that
Yes.
car, you see them everywhere. And I was just like,
Yeah.
I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that. I had no idea how to run a business. It was literally I just saw the potential, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna try it. Like if it, I kind of was just like, if it didn't work, I could always go back to work. And I think because I was in such a bad position, it kind of gave me that drive to be like, well, this is better. This is better.
Got
And
you.
because I had to make it work, personally, I'm a solo mum, I had a mortgage. I was just like, this is it. So
Right.
I was calling people, I was responding to leads, I was having conversations. It was a numbers game. I'm like, I guess the more people I speak to, the
Right.
more clients I'm going to secure.
And it sounds like that's where you got the courage from to move forward because part of it obviously you've got again your solo mom, your mortgage, life, and all kinds of things. But as you said, this is it.
Yeah. I was like, it's got to work. So literally, I was just, I left no stone unturned. I was all day, every day, I was probably, pulling some late nights as well. But at that point, I was just like, it has to work. And I'd always wanted to run a business. So I think that drive and that fire was so much more than just, oh, I'm just here to make a quick buck. I think because I bucked against like the norm and in terms of like jobs, I was always jumping to and from jobs, seeking something more because I'd get bored or I'd get over being having to seek for permission to go on
Right.
holidays or seek permission to leave early to catch a flight away from the weekend and being turned no. So I'd always kind of had that. I want to be a business owner. I want the flexibility. So that kind of was probably that extra bit of, well, I really want it. I want this lifestyle as well.
Mhm. So when you because I would imagine early on, it's coming, it's just one after the next, and it's growing really and quickly. Um, when did you get a chance to catch your breath and just sort of breathe for a moment?
So
Or are you
I
still
haven't
waiting for
quite
that moment?
still waiting. No, no, no. I think I got to a spot where I learnt that, well, not learn, but it was more of a, I work hard. I love to work hard, but then I also get to play hard as well.
Got you.
And I
Okay.
get to reap the benefits. And we do travel a lot. My daughter and I, she's literally been to Bali 8 times and she's only 6. So, that's kind of the breath of fresh air that, we
Got
get
you.
to go away for months. We've done a 2-month trip before. And if I work a couple of hours during the day, the business still gets to run and then we get to enjoy all the amazing places. So I guess that's probably my breath of fresh air and the effect I get to stop. But it's just there's so many more goals, so much more impact to make
Right.
that I'll just keep going.
A question that I oftentimes ask a guest here, and usually it's kind of near the end, but I want to ask you now because I think it'll kind of shape where we go in terms of the
Yeah.
conversation. But what does living audaciously means to you, and how do you think that sort of framed or shaped your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think it's really about stepping up and being unapologetically you, and just having a level of self trust and self belief to show up in the way. So, really just leading with that audacity and being like, this is me, and the only competition that I have to fight against is me yesterday.
Mm,
And there is no comparison. And, I think that the second I left that behind, in terms of like comparing myself to other coaches, I was just like, I am different and I have something different to offer. So that's really what I feel like it means to me, is really just doing it your own way, and doing it in a way that feels good for you.
got you. Makes sense. Um, you you reference being particularly for women to step into their CEO era. I'd
Yeah.
love for you to expand on it a bit more, and what does that look like for women?
Yeah, so I find a lot of women, they jump into the online space and they really just see it. Firstly, there's probably a couple of groups, but some just see it as a bit of a side hustle. And that generally stems from that they only jump in to make a bit of extra buck on the side. They need a little bit more to get by, but they price themselves too low that it stays a side hustle. Then you've got the others that kind of work it out to be like, okay, well, this can be a real business. But then what happens is they end up in the trenches. They
Okay.
just end up doing all the work. They're reluctant to invest in team. They're reluctant to essentially step up and become the CEO. And that's really where the growth is, because if you're in it and you're exchanging your time for money with clients, then you're always going to be on that hamster wheel of business. So essentially leveling up and being the CEO removes you from directly from that client work, empowering team to actually lead and for them to work directly with the clients. And you get to be the CEO and do what lights you up. Do the work that lights you up, and outsource or grab team that can do the work that you don't like, that they love, and there's their sono genius. And then everybody gets to do what they love. And then you have this beautiful ecosystem of business, and you get to be the CEO, and you get to craft the business around you. That's where we come up with that freedom first and a me first business. So they craft the business around them, and then everybody within the business is in their zone of genius. So it just creates this beautiful harmony of everybody doing what they love.
I I do love the fact that you sort of pivoted into the coaching space, and you said the part that kind of lights me up and gets me excited is the whole idea is that off the top I was talking about we're all on our journey, right? And so clearly, you've taken your journey, you've taken your steps that had a huge impact on your life, and if the rest of your life was just doing your thing, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you've taken that a step further and say, okay, wait a second. There's some things that I picked up here. There's still understandings and learnings I've had. I'm going to take that and coach others and help the other individuals to shorten their learning curve and guide them on their pathway. Where did that part come from here, and why was it so important for you to get in the coaching space?
So at the beginning, it happened just organically. I didn't even know what a business coach was in the beginning. So very much like my VA business, I didn't really know. And I'd kind of seen a bit on social media, and I invested in another coach to teach me how to actually put a course together and frame that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually just started teaching people that I knew, and then it just kind of grew. I started doing one-to-one, where I was teaching the framework of how to get started, and then I invested in a bigger group program to learn actually how to run group sessions. So then I moved from one-to-one to coaching. So I very much had invested in the experts, the coaches, to show me the shortcut. And I just kind of learned how to create a really harmonious big coaching business. And then we just grew, and now we do group programs, and we just have all of these other things. And I the only way that I worked that out was I kept on investing in the experts. I kept on learning, I kept on growing to then do that. As then it was about 2 years into the coaching space, I went and got my qualifications as a coach. so that now I can support my clients to actually change. So I've added in my neuro-linguistic programming or NLP, master coaching, therapeutic hypnotherapy, sound bowls, and a lot of other modalities, because it's proven to help people actually make the change. Because you can learn all the strategy forever and ever, and until you can get behind it, until you can actually get rid of that imposter syndrome or get rid of like the fear of failure or fear of
Mm.
success, then they struggle to make the change to actually adopt the strategies. So very much the key, and it's, a lot of people say, it's a bit cliche, but coaches need coaches as well.
Right.
And it's so important to just invest in, if you want to know everything, invest in the people that have already walked the path before you.
Mm. I think it's beautiful. Like I said, this is giving back is, I think that's what makes the journey that much more beautiful, and it certainly does. I think the piece that we also, I think it's important to touch on, is very much part of your journey, is sort of being a solo mom, and how that influences your work as a CEO, and your leadership style, and how that framed and fit into the grand scheme of things for you.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, and probably one of the reasons why I felt like I needed to work extra hard, was because I guess I need to bring in equivalent to two incomes. I mean, most households have a mum and a dad, and they bring in two incomes. So I kind of was just like, well, I'll just make two incomes. So, I've always kind of pushed for that. But then also just to kind of show my daughter that, you don't have to follow the norms of society as well. And that's super important for me, that, yes, you've got to go to school until they decide to change or improve the schooling system. But you don't have to go to university. I went to college here, which is not university, but kind of a little bit lower than that, like a community
Mhm.
college. And I have still managed to have a huge corporate career, but then also, you could start a business. And I think that there's a lot to be said for actually teaching kids at a young age about business, and that you can choose. You don't have to conform
Right,
to
right.
climbing the corporate ladder. And I think it really became even more important to actually speak to that community so much more. And I have about five solo moms that are in my programs at the moment, to kind of show them that there is a different way, and they don't have to be struggling in their job to bring in the money. Because especially now, like, property is getting really expensive. Like, I'm not too sure what it's like where you are, but here after the pandemic, everything is expensive. Everything, travel, home, petrol, groceries. So it's kind of
Mhm.
so much more important for us, especially as solo mums, that we have the resources to be able to earn the income that we need to sustain the family unit as well.
And just for our listeners, you're based in Australia, right?
Yes,
That's
correct.
just so they know. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but yeah, yeah. Toronto, Canada, and yes, it's things are expensive all the time.
Yeah.
Um, from a resilience standpoint, I guess there's some really key lessons that you learned there as well. And again, being a solo mother, and running a business, and that there was some influence and taught you to be a bit more resilient. Do you have an example, maybe one or two things that you learned around resilience as a solo mom, being running a business?
I think the biggest lesson is to actually ask for help. And I
Okay.
think that's it's probably, the opposite of resilience. But I think, we try, and especially as females, even worse, we try to do everything ourselves. It's just part of our traits, it's in our nature. We're all brought up to be an independent woman. And even in business as well as in home life, I've just learnt to ask for help and be okay with asking for help. So that's, asking from help from coaches, or even, finding other business women that are going through the same thing. She can be like, oh, can we just have a chat today as well? And then even more so is just asking for help and investing in supporting our personal lives as well. So, rather than spending all weekend cleaning and doing the washing and things like that, whereas for me that's precious family time, is I
Mhm.
do actually outsource that now. I have a cleaner, I send out the laundry. So, I do get that sort of support. And then I think that's really kind of helped the journey of staying resilient. So when I do have to put extra time into the business, that it allows me the fact of that. And then it's not like I'm bound to my desk 24/7, and then, the rest of my life falls apart. Everything else in my life is kind of good. And then, I can handle kind of whatever is thrown at me in the business. So it kind of builds that resilience as well, as long as the ecosystem of the business and life is kind of, all supported.
and I love how you literally find ways to create that balance, right? And that's
Yeah.
so important. And it's interesting because there are even myths around balance, and and even for example, outsourcing your laundry. Oh my gosh, what kind of mother are you? And that kind of like people get in their heads right
Yeah.
about those sorts of things because I'm
Yep.
not being a good mom because I don't do this, I don't do this I'm supposed to do. But really, at the end of the day, it is about finding balance and doing the things that make your life easier, I would say.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's no one way to do something. And it's
I,
just like if somebody wants to sit there and judge,
yeah,
then that's fine with them. They can sit there and do the laundry all weekend, but I guarantee you that they're unhappy.
Yeah, no. I totally get that. I totally get that. I want to go back to the growth thing because it's something that came to mind that
Yes.
I think is interesting. I would imagine that during that process, there were. Uh, uh, I was going to use the word mistakes, but I'm not going to use mistakes. I want to use the word lessons. Let's use the word lessons.
Lessons. Yes.
That lessons in rapid growth. I wonder if you can identify a couple of them for me.
Probably hiring people too quickly.
Hmm.
But I used
So
to have a
like you had a job and you said I need you to do it, just do it without vetting them. Is that what you mean?
Oh, I mean, I interviewed them, but I probably sometimes, like, if I felt that maybe they weren't the right person, that I still hired them. And I think in the past, I kind of did things backwards. I got really good at sales. So I got really good at closing clients, but I would close the clients before I'd have the team to support the clients.
Okay,
So
okay.
I didn't, so I was kind of like in a bit of a bind where clients were waiting to start and I'm just like, okay, you'll do. Okay, you'll do. And then that was, very big learning that you really need to, yes, I vetted them and yes, they, potentially came highly regarded or I'd met them in the industry, but still just not a right fit for the business or not a right fit for the client. So I definitely learned a lot about people management and, I'd been a manager before, but when you're doing it in your own business, it's
Mhm.
very different. And going from just me to a team of 15, lots and lots of lessons about, team dynamics, right fit for clients and things like that. So that's probably the biggest lesson is even if you need team yesterday, still take
Yeah.
your time to pick the right ones.
Okay. So undoubtedly, there are listeners here at different stages of their lives. Maybe some are sort of contemplating or thinking about or not sure. Maybe they've got that pull, right? That same pull that you had. Any sort of advice? I mean, for someone who wants to go all in, but they're still grappling with this thing called fear of failure. What would you advise them or suggest?
Yeah. So I always like to reframe it is if other people can do it, they can do it too.
Hmm.
And there's no difference between me or them. I just had the drive. And I think before I'd done all the mindset work, I didn't even know what the fear was. I just kept on moving. And fear is a choice, it is a fictitious thing that we create for our body to keep us safe.
Hmm.
And if you want something so much, just push through the fear and get out of the comfort zone and get into the uncomfortable zone because it can actually be amazing. And I think if you can see a picture of a different life for yourself, as long as you can see the picture, you can just make the picture brighter and amplify it and just actually go and get it. Because what I say to people is you've only got one shot. Like, depending upon what you believe in, we're here once. So if you want a different life, then you're the only one that can change it and no one's going to come and save you. No one's going to come and give it to you. You have to go and get it. So I think using those in the reframe to be like, what if it could actually work out better than ever expected as a reframe
I love that question.
can just change the game for them rather than just sitting in the fear, because otherwise they're just going to be sitting there years down the track. And do you really want to get to 70 years old to be like, oh, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I had a
Mm,
different
mm,
life? You're in control.
yeah. Yeah.
Make a different
I love
decision.
I love questions like
What if? Yeah.
what if, or why not, or let's try. I mean, all those sorts of things, speak to the possibilities that exist, right? And the only way to get an answer to those questions is to take action, right? And so I'm a really big
Yeah.
fan of those questions. Okay, so then what would be the first audacious step that someone would need to take?
Either speak to a coach
Okay.
and invest in somebody that has done it, or just start looking, just start researching, start actually seeing what other options are out there and something that you could do now that you enjoy, that you've already got the skills for. I think a
Mm,
lot of people think that, yes, they have to go and learn a new skill to be able to start a business, but they'd be surprised how many skills they've already got that they
right.
could do with their eyes closed that they could go and offer somebody.
Looking back, sort of at your journey, what would you say is sort of the boldest sort of decision that you made, and how did that change your life?
Other than going all in on my business in the beginning, it was probably going all in on the coaching business.
Mm,
That was scary because I didn't just do it slowly. I actually gave away 90% of our clients to the team. So the team actually then contracted the clients in their business. I gave them away.
mhm.
So I literally gave away all of the revenue except for about 20%. And then within 30 days, I'd replaced it in full in the coaching business. So that was
Gotcha,
probably the biggest pivotal move in the business, but also just gratification that I was on the right track, that this was the right decision.
gotcha. I love it. I love it. No, I think it's wonderful to be able to get to that point and look back and say, yeah, like when you can. So I oftentimes talk about sort of life, in forward, it's an art, right? But when you look back and you can see it's a science. So you look back and see where all the dots connected, right? And go, I did this to do this, and you had to do that. Where in the moment you really didn't know, and so 'cause you're going with your gut, your intuition, what you think. But when you get to the other side and you have that perspective, you're like, no, that wasn't necessary. So I love the fact you're able to, and that's why I asked that question. Like, what can you pinpoint as your key
Mm,
sort of decision making that you made? And I love that. Um, every so often I kind of throw a few sort of rapid fire questions, if you will, things the first thing that comes to
great.
mind, kind of a thing. So we'll throw a few and see how you think. Does that make sense?
Let's go.
Okay, so how about this? Are you an early bird or a night owl?
A night owl.
One word that best describes your leadership style.
One word.
Mine would be audacious, but yeah, go ahead.
Of course. I
But I got
guess
to live on my
inspiring.
brand, right? So
Yeah, totally. I guess inspiring.
first thing you do when you wake up,
Check my phone.
I'll put my hand up too.
Yeah,
Uh, is
guilty.
there a mantra or a quote that you live by?
Yeah, lately the one for this year is I go first.
Mm.
I like to lead by that every day. I go first so that everybody else can just follow. They don't have to go first.
And how did that develop? I'm very curious how you developed that.
Oh, it actually came from I was in Bali at a business retreat, but it was very much about ice baths and breath work and activations. And we had to write a letter to our future self 1 year down the track. And actually that's how I finished the letter. Was I went through everything about what my life would be like in the next year, and I wrote I go first, and it just stuck. And we're even having our new hoodies with our I go first thing and the reason why on the back. So I'm hoping that the movement will take off a little bit. So it'll be an I go first movement.
Got you. Got you. Freedom or balance? Which one would you choose if you had only choice of one?
Freedom.
What is your favorite way to recharge outside of work?
I love saunas, infrared saunas, plunge pools, massages. That's my kind of
Love it.
thing.
And last one is who inspires you the most right now?
Who inspires me the most? Oh, it's such a hard one because there's so many. Trying to think who I've been listening to. I think probably the biggest, probably the one that I've been watching and following lately is Alex Hormozy. He just tells it as it is.
Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Love that. Love that. Sasha, this is just very, very awesome. I really appreciate the insights and I certainly love your journey that you've taken. It's certainly inspiring without question. The whole idea of sort of being the CEO of your era and jumping all in, and then you're again, as I said earlier, you're taking your experiences and you're turning around to help other women rise to be their own CEO is just a wonderful thing. And and through that process, they're recognizing their own brilliance and really building high impact businesses at the same time that give themselves financial freedom and fulfillment. I think those are all just wonderful wonderful things. For listeners that wanted to connect with you directly or learn more about your work, or maybe even, do some coaching with you, where could we send them?
Sure, they can always send me a DM on Instagram. I hang out there every day. They can shoot me a voice note, always up for a chat, which is just Sasha Eburne, SashaEburne__, or www.sashaeburne.com.
Awesome. Well, Sasha, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate the time with you. And thank you for being a guest on the Audacious Living podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Back we are on the podcast. Much thanks and appreciation goes out to Sasha for being here. One of the biggest takeaways from the conversation, when I have to reflect on it, it's got to be this. Audacity isn't about doing more. It's about choosing differently. And what I loved about Sasha's story is how clearly she spoke to something that so many women feel, especially solo moms and entrepreneurs. That pressure to do it all, prove it all, and hold it all together on your own. That her reminder to ask for help, build support and step into the CEO role is exactly what so many need to hear. If this conversation resonated with you, I strongly encourage you to connect with Sasha directly. She's on Instagram, or you can find her at her website, sashaeburne.com, to learn more about her coaching and programs. Of course, we got you covered because all the links are in the show notes below. Now, before we go, I want, again, that reminder, so many entrepreneurs treat their journey like they're running nonstop on that hamster wheel, working harder just to stay in the same place. Sasha shows that when you step off the wheel and step into leadership, you don't lose momentum, you gain direction. And that's what living audaciously really looks like. If this episode supported you, inspired you, or challenged you, please take a moment to like, share, or leave a review. Every time you grow audaciously, you don't just change your own life, you give you give others permission to do the same. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness, be audacious.